Heaven has issued a decree tonight, and if these words have reached you, it is not by chance. Something unseen has been set in motion, and your spirit has been summoned into alignment with it. When God begins to move, He does not consult human calendars or wait for permission. His will unfolds quietly, but with the force of eternity behind it. Those who sense this shift are not ordinary souls, they are the ones heaven has chosen to stand still while the earth begins to tremble. As C.S. Lewis wrote in Mere Christianity, "There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal." This truth affirms that your presence in this divine moment is no accident. You are a chosen soul, marked by heaven for a purpose that is now being set into motion. Chosen one. Once God starts doing this, you must keep your mouth shut. It's happening not tomorrow, not someday, but now. The movement of heaven is not always loud. It does not thunder, it breathes. It moves through silence, through moments that seem ordinary but are weighted with divine purpose. What feels like stillness is not the absence of progress. It is sacred construction hidden from human sight. God is rearranging the unseen framework of your life, restoring what was broken, realigning what was delayed, and preparing a manifestation too pure to be exposed prematurely. This is not the hour to prove yourself or to explain what you sense. The moment you try to put heaven's work into human words, you risk weakening the power it carries. Let the mystery breathe. Let the silence protect what is sacred. You may not see the change yet, but your spirit already feels the vibration of it, the subtle awareness that destiny has shifted. God is not distant. His movement is closer than the air you breathe. The signs are all around you, small, quiet rearrangements that only your heart can interpret. This is how heaven works. In stillness, precision, and divine order, the decree has gone forth, and nothing can reverse it. Remain silent, stand firm, and watch as the invisible becomes visible. For heaven has already begun its work, and the moment has arrived where faith must speak louder than words. Now, as you step forward into this divine truth, if this resonates with your spirit, you can write 777 as an act of agreement in faith, or simply stay and receive. I declare this over you: what was delayed shall be released, what was broken shall be rebuilt, and what was hidden shall be revealed in divine timing. No opposition can undo what heaven has ordained. From this moment forward, your silence will not be weakness, it will be your weapon. Your stillness will not be passivity, it will be proof of trust. The decree has been spoken, and the hands of God are already at work in unseen places. Do not rush away. Stay with me until the end, because before this message concludes, we will close with a powerful prayer, one that will not speak to your mind, but directly into your spirit. When God begins to move, nothing remains the same. What once seemed stable begins to tremble, and what appeared lost suddenly finds its way back into order. His hand does not enter a life gently, it redefines it. When heaven sets a plan in motion, the ground beneath you must realign to its rhythm. The atmosphere changes before your circumstances do. You start to feel an invisible current pushing you forward, away from what no longer serves your purpose, and toward what was always meant for you. C.S. Lewis in The Silver Chair wrote, "There are no accidents. Our guide is Aslan, and he was there when the giant king caused the letters to be cut, and he knew already all things that would come of them, including this. This perspective assures us that the trembling and shifting you feel are no accidents but divine choreography, guided by God's eternal presence to align your life with His purpose. This movement of God rarely announces itself. It comes disguised as disruption, as a sudden ending, as silence that feels too heavy to bear. But what looks like confusion is actually divine calibration. God is not dismantling your life. He is dismantling your limits. He shakes the ground not to destroy you, but to loosen what was never meant to stay. Every closed door, every abrupt detour, every relationship that faded without reason, none of it was random. Each was heaven, adjusting the terrain for your next step. Do not panic when the familiar begins to fall apart. The breaking you feel is not punishment. It is a transition. In every shaking there is a strategy. In every silence there is building. You are being repositioned for something your previous environment could never contain. The move of God is not always gentle because destiny cannot be built on comfort. He will pull you out of what is predictable so that he can place you in what is prepared. When God moves, mountains realign, time compresses, and hearts awaken. The natural world must bow to the supernatural command. It may feel like loss, but it is liberation. What was once heavy will lift, what was once hidden will surface. You are standing in the tremor of transformation, the proof that heaven is not waiting any longer. Do not resist the shift. Flow with it, trust it, because this is how God reorders destinies, through motion that feels like chaos but is actually choreography. The shaking is not the end, it is the sound of heaven beginning. There is a divine logic behind God's command to stay silent. Heaven does not waste words, and neither should you. When God begins to move, silence becomes not a pause, but a posture, a deliberate act of faith that protects what is being formed. Every miracle has a womb, and that womb is secrecy. The moment you expose something holy to human noise, you invite misunderstanding, envy, and interference. What is still growing must remain hidden, just as the seed must stay beneath the soil until its roots are strong enough to face the Sunday. Silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. You may feel the urge to explain yourself, to prove that God is working in your favor, to tell others about what he whispered in your spirit, but restraint is your shield. Heaven is not asking you to hide out of fear. It is asking you to protect what is sacred. There are seasons when your victory must mature in secret, because premature exposure destroys divine timing. Some things are not meant to be spoken, not because they are uncertain, but because they are holy. Words carry power. They build and they break. They bless and they bind. When you speak of what heaven is still shaping, you risk bending it toward human expectation. Every revelation, every promise, every divine plan has a fragile stage where it requires your silence to survive. Think of it this way. The enemy cannot stop what God has ordained, but he can distract it, and he listens. When you reveal too much too soon, you give him ammunition. You invite resistance that was never meant to reach you. So keep your silence pure, not as a retreat, but as an act of warfare. When others question your quietness, remember that even Jesus was silent before his accusers, because divine truth does not need human defense. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of strength. It is the invisible armor that keeps envy, doubt, and negativity from touching what God is building. The less you explain, the more heaven expands. The quieter you become, the clearer God speaks. And this is the paradox of divine progress. The greatest moves of God happen in hidden places. Moses met God in the desert. David was anointed in private, and Mary conceived the Messiah in silence. The pattern has never changed. Heaven begins its miracles away from public eyes. So if you feel unseen, unheard, or misunderstood, take heart. You are exactly where God performs his best work. Your silence is not empty. It is full of God. Every unspoken word, every restrained impulse, every quiet prayer is creating a sacred atmosphere around you. It is heaven's way of saying, "Be still while I build." Trust the silence, guard it. Because in this stillness, the blueprint of your destiny is being written, and when the time is right, it will speak louder than any voice ever could. Every divine promise begins like a seed, small, unseen, and buried beneath the surface. To the untrained eye, silence looks like nothing is happening. But in the realm of God, silence is the soil where miracles are born. Nothing grows on display. The seed must disappear into darkness before it can push toward light. Likewise, the dreams God planted in you require secrecy, stillness, and time. Your silence is not a delay. It is the environment in which the supernatural takes root. When you stop speaking, you permit heaven to start working. There are forces at play that your words can either nurture or disturb. The seed doesn't need an audience, it needs depth. What you are carrying is delicate, sacred, and powerful. It must be hidden until it can withstand the weight of manifestation. In the same way a mother protects the child in her womb, you must protect the vision in your spirit. Do not discuss it with everyone. Not all soil is fertile, and not every ear can hold what heaven has told you. In the silence, God shapes you as much as he shapes your destiny. He builds patience, faith, and discernment in the waiting. The silence teaches you to hear his whisper instead of the noise of opinions. It trains you to trust timing over visibility. There will be moments when you feel forgotten, when your prayers echo back with no reply, but that's when the deepest work is happening. God hides growth beneath stillness so that, when it finally breaks the surface, no one can deny it was divine. You see, the seed cannot survive exposure before its time. The moment it's dug up and shown to the world, it dies. Many lose their miracle not because God failed, but because they revealed what was still germinating. Heaven's power functions through hiddenness. What grows in silence blooms in strength. When you resist the urge to explain, justify, or prove, you allow heaven's rhythm to take control. Do not confuse invisibility with inactivity. The quiet season is not wasted time, it is sacred incubation. God's fingerprints are pressing into your unseen spaces, forming purpose from patience, power from restraint. Let the silence do its holy work. What feels like darkness is actually divine depth. The roots of your destiny are stretching downward before they rise upward. One day soon, you will understand why God kept it hidden. The same people who thought nothing was happening will witness the full bloom. And when that moment comes, you won't need to say a word, the fruit will speak for itself. Until then, stay grounded in the quiet, trust the soil. For even beneath the silence, creation is alive, and heaven is still planting. There comes a moment when the air around you begins to change, when the rhythm of your days no longer matches the pulse of your spirit. That is not confusion, it is transition. Heaven has started to move, and your season is shifting. What once felt secure will begin to lose its grip, not because you failed, but because God is calling you to something larger than where you have been. The atmosphere of your life adjusts before the manifestation appears, and that tension you feel is simply the sound of heaven stretching your capacity for more. You may feel restless without knowing why. Things that once satisfied you now feel too small. Conversations that once inspired you now fall flat. People who once walked closely beside you begin to fade. This is how divine seasons announce themselves, not through loud declarations, but through holy discomfort. When God decides to elevate you, he first makes you uncomfortable. It's his way of saying, you can't stay here any longer. What looks like discontent is divine displacement. Heaven is rearranging your environment to fit your assignment. Every calling requires a change of atmosphere. The same soil that once nourished you may now restrict your roots. Don't mourn what is shifting. Recognize it as proof that you are growing. When the season changes, the blessings that belong to it change too. Trying to hold on to what God is releasing will only exhaust your spirit. Some doors are closing not because you did something wrong, but because the next chapter can't begin until you let go of the last one. In this in-between space, your faith is tested. You'll want clarity, but God offers confirmation in whispers, not blueprints. You'll crave stability, but he'll give you movement instead. He wants you to follow his wind, not your routine. The transition will often feel like loss, but it's actually a relocation. The pruning you feel is not punishment. It's preparation for the fruit that requires new sunlight. Do not misread divine transition as divine rejection. Heaven never subtracts without the intent to multiply. When you sense the shift, lean into it. Don't fight the closing of doors, worship through them. The very path that seems uncertain is the one that leads to fulfillment. Trust the rhythm of heaven more than the calendar of man. Seasons will always change, but purpose remains constant. You are being moved, not misplaced. The same God who led you into this shift will guide you through it. Breathe deeply, stay steady, and discern the signs. For when heaven changes your season, it never takes something from you. It always prepares to deliver something greater. Before every elevation, there is a separation. Before God unveils a promise, He hides the vessel that will carry it. The season you are walking through, the quiet, the distance, the feeling that no one understands you, is not punishment. It is divine isolation, a necessary test for those heaven intends to trust with greater power. You are not being forgotten. You are being filtered. Every noise, every distraction, every shallow attachment is being stripped away so that you can hear one voice clearly, God's. When heaven chooses someone, it removes them from the crowd long before the world ever sees their purpose. You may look around and wonder why those who once walked with you are no longer there, why people who promised loyalty have gone silent. But solitude is the sanctuary where clarity is born. God hides His chosen in obscurity, not to diminish them, but to protect what He is perfecting within them. Some revelations can only come in silence, and strength that can only form in loneliness. Do not rush out of this hidden place. The cave that feels cold is the same cave where destiny is being carved. In Scripture, David was anointed to be king but sent back to the fields alone. Elijah fled into the wilderness to hear the whisper of God. Even Jesus withdrew from the multitudes before every miracle. Heaven has never produced greatness without solitude. The hidden season is heaven's classroom, and silence is its language. In isolation, everything unnecessary falls away. You start to see who truly supports you, what truly sustains you, and what truly matters. You learn that validation from man cannot compare to affirmation from God. The emptiness you feel is not a void, it's space being cleared for divine fullness. Every unanswered call, every quiet room, every night spent wondering if you still matter, they are all parts of your refinement. And here lies the paradox. The lonelier you feel, the closer heaven actually is. You may not hear the applause, but you will hear direction. You may not feel movement, but you are being molded. What feels like exile is actually preservation. God isolates before He elevates. He withdraws before He reveals. So breathe in the quiet, embrace the stillness, and stop fighting the solitude. The world may think you've disappeared, but heaven is watching you closely. Chosen one, you are not abandoned. You are being hidden under divine protection until the appointed time. When this season ends, you will emerge not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to become. There comes a moment in every believer's journey when heaven whispers, "Now." That single word changes everything. You may not see lightning or hear thunder, but deep inside, your spirit recognizes that the waiting season is breaking. What once felt stagnant begins to stir. The pieces that never seemed to fit start falling into place. This is the divine turning point, the instant when heaven moves from preparation to performance, when prayers stop echoing in silence and begin returning as answers. For a long time it may have seemed as though nothing was happening. You were faithful, yet doors remained shut. You prayed, but heaven was quiet. You sowed, but the harvest was hidden. What you did not see was that God was building a foundation strong enough to hold the blessing He was about to release. Timing is not delay, it is precision. The moment you align with God's timing, what took years to form can unfold in a single day. Scripture reminds us of this rhythm in Habakkuk 2:3. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, though it tarry, wait for it, for it will surely come, it will not delay. This is not poetic comfort, it is divine law. Every promise has an appointed hour, and when that hour strikes, no force in heaven or on earth can stop its manifestation. You are now standing in that appointed hour. The waiting is no longer passive, it's prophetic. The clock of heaven has turned in your favor. When God decides it is time, acceleration replaces delay. Suddenly, the people meant to help you appear, the opportunities that eluded you return, and paths that were blocked open effortlessly. The same doors that once rejected you will now recognize you. But remember, this is not a coincidence, it is coordination. Heaven has been arranging every detail behind the scenes so that everything aligns perfectly in this very moment. Do not be surprised when life begins to move quickly. What felt like years of silence was God gathering momentum. Just as the arrow must be pulled backward before it's launched forward, the resistance of your past was simply setting the trajectory for your rise. Every hardship was storing energy for your breakthrough. Chosen one, this is your divine tipping point. Do not doubt it, do not question it, simply walk in it. What was heavy will now become light. What was denied will now be delivered. The shift has begun, and heaven's voice declares, "It is time." This is the turning of the tide, the fulfillment of the promise, the dawn after the longest night. Hold your peace, lift your faith, and step boldly forward, for the waiting is over, and the move of God is here. When heaven begins to move, justice follows like a shadow of divine light. You may not always see how God defends you, but his justice never sleeps. For too long it may have felt as though lies were rewarded, truth was ignored, and righteousness was forgotten. But divine justice is not delayed, it is deliberate. God is never late, he is exact. Every injustice carries within it the seed of reversal, and when the season is right, heaven turns the imbalance into restoration. Justice in the kingdom of God is not about revenge, it is about realignment. What was stolen is returned with an increase. What was broken is rebuilt with beauty. What was lost in darkness is restored in the light. The hand of God does not strike in anger, it restores in wisdom. And when his justice begins to unfold, no one needs to argue your case. Heaven itself becomes your defense. Look at the promise in Isaiah 61:7. Instead of your shame, you shall have a double portion. Instead of dishonor, they shall rejoice in their lot. Therefore, in their land, they shall possess a double portion. Everlasting joy shall be theirs. This is the mathematics of heaven, multiplication through mercy. God never restores equally. He restores abundantly. Every tear you sowed in silence becomes a seed for multiplied joy. You may not recognize his justice at first, because it often arrives disguised as removal. God will quietly take certain people, situations, or habits out of your life, and you might mistake it for loss. But heaven subtracts only to add more perfectly. The closed doors were not rejection, they were redirection. The people who betrayed you were never meant to witness your victory. The silence you endured was not abandonment, it was insulation. And now, as divine justice begins to move, you will see reversals that defy logic. Those who once mocked you will marvel at you. Opportunities that bypassed you will circle back in your favor. Environments that rejected your presence will now require your wisdom. This is not a coincidence, it is compensation. Every invisible battle you fought in obedience is now being rewarded in visibility. Heaven's justice is moving swiftly on your behalf. You won't need to demand it, defend it, or declare it. It will simply happen. God himself is reordering the scales, righting the wrongs, and rewriting your story with grace and authority. Stand tall and stay silent, for your vindication is not coming from people, it is coming from the throne of heaven. And when it manifests, it will speak louder than any accusation ever could. When God decides it is time, everything begins to move faster than logic can explain. What took others years to accomplish will happen for you in months. What seemed impossible suddenly becomes natural. You will look around and realize that heaven has shortened the distance between promise and fulfillment. This is divine acceleration, the compression of time by the hand of God. It is not luck, not coincidence, but the supernatural synchronization of destiny. You have waited, endured, and prepared. Now heaven is redeeming every lost moment. The same years that felt wasted will become years of recovery. God wastes nothing, not your pain, not your delay, not your mistakes. When He accelerates you, He folds time, making up for every setback and turning your endurance into momentum. You will find yourself standing in places you never imagined, reaching so soon, and it will not be because you pushed harder, it will be because grace carried you. Acceleration is not chaos, it is divine precision. God is not rushing, He is redeeming. Every delay had a purpose, to align you, strengthen you, and humble you, so that when the doors opened, you could sustain the blessing. Now that the foundation has been set, heaven increases the speed. You may feel the pace quicken, relationships change, opportunities multiply, and responsibilities expand. Don't fear the speed, embrace it. The same wind that once tested you is now propelling you forward. Be mindful, though acceleration requires focus. When God moves swiftly, distraction becomes your greatest enemy. You cannot afford to look back or explain every step. Those who misunderstand your rise are not meant to walk this part of the journey. Keep your heart steady and your eyes on the path. The blessing of acceleration is also the test of discipline. How you handle the sudden shift will determine how long you can sustain it. You will notice divine patterns forming, doors opening before you knock, ideas coming in dreams, people appearing at perfect moments. The rhythm of heaven will feel like favor on repeat. And in those moments, remember, this is not random. It is the reward of obedience, the fruit of faithfulness, the evidence that your waiting was never wasted. Chosen one, you have entered the fast lane of grace. Do not resist the current. Ride it. Everything that was once slow is now speeding up, and everything that was delayed is catching up. You are living proof that when God decides the time is now, no force on earth can keep you bound to the past. What once took a lifetime to build will bloom suddenly before your eyes because the clock of heaven has turned in your favor. When God accelerates your journey, He never lets you walk alone. In this new season, divine connections begin to emerge, people, opportunities, and encounters that seem random but are perfectly timed. Heaven is weaving threads of destiny around your life, linking you to those who carry keys you didn't even know you needed. Some will come to teach, others to build, and a few will simply remind you who you are when the world tries to make you forget. Every connection in this divine network has purpose. Some will bring wisdom you prayed for, others will open doors you could never unlock yourself. God works through people, but not through everyone. The same way He prunes relationships in one season, He plants new ones in the next. You'll begin to notice patterns, souls who speak your language without explanation, opportunities that match your calling without competition, doors that open without you having to knock. These are not coincidences. They are alignments orchestrated from above. This is why your earlier silence was so important. It preserved the purity of your path, so that when the right people appeared, they would recognize your spirit, not your story. Divine alignment happens in stillness. You had to lose the wrong voices to hear the right ones. Heaven cannot connect what pride, fear, or noise would have confused. Now that you've learned to walk in quiet obedience, God can safely bring those who were assigned to your next chapter. But remember, discernment is still essential. Not every connection that feels divine is divinely appointed. The counterfeit often arrives before the authentic. Test every spirit, observe every fruit, and trust the peace of God within you. The right alliances will not drain you, they will strengthen you. The right voices will not compete for your attention, they will confirm your direction. There is a sound that only the Spirit can hear, the subtle hum of divine machinery turning behind the veil. When heaven begins to move, you may not see it with your eyes, but everything around you starts to respond. Conversations shift, circumstances rearrange. What seemed motionless begins to vibrate with unseen life. God's movement is not always dramatic. Often, it begins quietly, like the first tremor before the dawn. This is the stage where manifestation takes form. You are no longer in waiting, yet not fully in arrival. The spiritual and the physical are meeting halfway. and the tension you feel is evidence that a breakthrough is pressing through the surface. Doors will start to open without knocking. Opportunities will seem to appear out of thin air, but they are not new. They were prepared long ago, waiting for this exact moment when heaven's timing and your obedience finally aligned. This is also the moment when distractions rise like smoke to pull your focus away. The enemy cannot stop what God has decreed, but he will try to distort your perception. Do not allow fear to make you question the reality of what is happening. When the shaking increases, it is not destruction, it is delivery. What once resisted your progress is now being forced to make room for your arrival. Everything around you is shifting because the command has already been issued in the spirit. The natural world is catching up to a decision heaven made long ago. You may notice people being moved into or out of your life abruptly. Some will leave quietly, others will appear suddenly. Don't panic. This is divine choreography. God is positioning every element precisely where it must be for your promise to unfold. Chosen one, you are standing in the center of movement. You don't need to push, you only need to perceive. When the rivers of destiny start flowing, your task is to stay steady in faith and silent in spirit. This is not the time to explain or predict, it is the time to watch. Because when God moves, he moves completely. Nothing unfinished will remain. Every unseen delay is catching up. Every hidden prayer is surfacing, and every forgotten promise is awakening. Stay grounded, stay grateful. What you are feeling is not confusion, it is confirmation. Heaven is no longer preparing to move, it already has. You are standing inside the fulfillment that generations prayed for. The shaking you sense is the sound of victory breaking open. In this sacred hour, heaven invites you to rest, not in sleep, but in stillness. The work is already in motion. The decree has already been spoken. You have carried faith through silence, endured isolation, and stood firm through the shaking. Now, all that remains is to trust the unseen hand that has never left your side. Stillness is not idleness. It is agreement with divine order. When you stop striving, you give heaven space to complete what it started. Peace is not the absence of movement. It is the awareness that movement is happening under divine control. Close your eyes and breathe. Every breath is a declaration that God is near. Every heartbeat is a reminder that heaven is alive within you. You don't have to force open what God has already unlocked. You don't have to explain the miracle that is forming in silence. The winds are shifting, and the evidence of your faith is rising like the first light of dawn. You are stepping into completion, not confusion into manifestation, not struggle. Chosen one, lift your spirit in quiet worship. Let gratitude replace anxiety, and reverence silence your fears. Say within your heart, God, I will not rush what you are perfecting. I will not speak before you finish. I will rest in the truth that your timing is flawless, your justice complete, and your promise unbreakable. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of peace. You have fought long enough. Now, let grace fight for you. As you stay in this holy calm, know that heaven is still speaking. Every delay is turning into direction, every burden into blessing, every wound into wisdom. Your silence has built a temple of faith around your destiny, and now God is filling it with glory. What was hidden is being revealed. What was impossible is being rewritten. You do not need to announce what God is about to make undeniable. Be still, for the Lord is moving. The night is ending, and light is beginning to speak your name. Stay in reverence, stay in faith, and let heaven finish its masterpiece. For those who kept silent when God moved will soon see what others could only imagine, and it will be said of you, they waited in silence, and heaven answered with power.